Hey guys, it's Kellie. I'm back and I have a wonderful guest, woman I love speaking to, and I'm so glad she's back with us. I have Karen Chaston. Hey Karen, how are you doing?
Good, thank you, Kellie. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on our show again. It's always a pleasure to have you.
Oh, that's so nice. I love chatting with you as well. Thank you.
Great. Okay, so well, before we start out, I just want to give our listeners just some information. You are an author. I mean, you've written multiple books, and I wanted to talk to you today about Live Love by Design and talking about kind of how you can design your life and what we can really start to do when we want to really take hold of our lives. And I know you're the woman to talk to about it.
Yeah, I certainly am. But I want to tell you a little story, which I just found so amazing. Just on Monday night, I had the pleasure of going to Sydney Opera House because I'm not sure if your listeners remember, I live in Sydney, Australia. Mm-hmm. And I went to Sydney Opera House and I actually spent an evening with Jane Fonda.
Oh, my goodness.
2,000, I know, and 2,000 other people, of course. But I'm pretty sure Jane Fonda needs no introduction to any of your listeners.
Yes.
And Jane told us a story that when she was 59, she's now 80. So when she was 59, she decided that her life is like a 3-act play, or every movie has 3 acts in it. So she started to really contemplate her life, and she thought, first act is 0 to 30, second act 30 to 60, and then 60 to 90 or beyond. And she thought, I'm just about to start my final act. And I really want to make sure that I have no regrets when I go on to my next venture. So she took her 59th year as a time to really look at who she was. She even researched her public persona. She went deep inside and she really started to figure out who should she be for the final act. You know, as she said, it's not like a movie. When you're filming a movie, you can actually go, no, retake, that's not good enough, that scene's not good enough. Mm-hmm. So she really wanted to make sure that when she passed, she had no regrets. So it took her the whole year, and she was married to Ted Turner at that time. And she actually said she never even told Ted what she was doing, because he would have actually said, no, life is all about me, not about you, which was quite an interesting comment, wasn't it? Yes. So at the end of the research, she actually left Ted Turner, and she decided that she wanted to totally focus on how she can get the best out of life, how she can get the best out of her relationships, how she can get the best out of everything that she does. And that's when she went back to acting, because when she was with Ted Turner, she didn't act at all for 10 years. So isn't that an amazing story, that she actually did everything that I do with people? We yes. take them back to see where they are now. And her comment was, you have to look back in order to go forward. So you need to look at the good things and the bad things in your life. You need to look at your beliefs. You need to look at everything about yourself. And then you say, is this belief serving me?
Yeah.
And if it's not, why not change it?
Wow. And it sounds so profound just to say, change it. It sounds like something that when people hear it, they go, well, how am I supposed to change it? I've been doing the same thing for, X amount of years, or, I've been living my life this way for so long. How do I just go and change it?
Well, that actually is where I come in, and I can certainly help people with that. But do you know what? For every belief you have, you can actually look at it, and you can find examples that make it true, and you can also find examples that make it false. Mm-hmm. So that in itself makes you go, well, what is this belief? Is it actually true, or is it false? And then when you do that exercise, that's when you start to go, well, I don't need that belief anymore because it's not serving me. And it could be something as simple as your diet, what you believe about food, or it could be something about what you believe about money. Like, so many people really have problems with money. And it all comes down to your belief system, and your beliefs might not even be yours. They may have come from your parents or from a teacher or from someone else. So you can even go back and you can say, well, is this belief even mine?
Well, yeah, and you told us before that you had that life experience where you were doing everything, and I like that you used the term your Groundhog Day days, kind of, where you were just doing the same thing over and over again. And, I mean, you did have a pretty traumatic experience that really took you out of it, but you still took yourself out of it. And as I was saying before, I think that's really difficult for a lot of people to do.
Yes, and I totally agree with you, and thank you for recognising that, because you know what? A lot of the times, what we even define as success may not even be our definition. My success when I was in my corporate life and working all the time and eating too much and drinking too much just to maintain that lifestyle. And when I started to look back and to actually go, is this my life? Is this life serving me? I realised that it wasn't. Even though I was earning all this money, I was wasting so much of it just to get through the day, just to feel good. Mm-hmm. Whereas I didn't need to do that. I could have felt good by looking after myself more, by actually realising that, do you know what? Just because you're working all those hours, are you actually being as productive as what you can be?
Yes, that's true, because even though you may seem like you're being productive because you're at work and you're, putting money away, you're putting money into your paycheck, you may not be being productive in your life. I know, for me, sometimes I get caught up in just work and getting things, done at work, that I'm really lacking on doing the things that I feel like are important for my, life happiness and the things that I want to really get accomplished.
Exactly. And there's actually a book about them out that's called The 5-Hour Workday. And I can't remember, I know the author's name is Stephan, but I can't remember his last name at the moment. And he owns Power Paddleboard. And he actually has reduced, all of his employees work 5 hours a day.
Wow.
They work from 8 a.m. to 1 a.m. Mm-hmm. And he did the research. He did it for just for 6 months. It started out as a 6-month trial. And I'm pretty sure it's 3 years later and they're still doing it. Because what he found was people who work an 8-hour day, especially if you're in the what terminology did he use? He actually said if you're in the mental business, it wasn't quite mental, it's something like that. Information business. Mm-hmm. So if you're selling your information for time, which most people are, you think in corporate, that's exactly what you're doing. Yes. You are selling, what you know, and they are paying you for it. So he said that most people cannot work an 8 hours a day. If you're in a physical job, you can. But if you're in a mental job, your brain just cannot be full on for 8 hours. So he did the research and he found that most employees work 5 hours a day. So what he did was he still paid them exactly for an 8-hour day, but he said, we're going to work 5 hours. So you have to figure out how you can do your job in 5 hours and then you can go home. So they all figured it out and they all got it. And what he found was production actually went up.
Really?
Because, yes, production went up and they were working 5 hours a day. And the reason it went up was they had time to look after themselves. They had time to spend with their family. They weren't coming home exhausted, sitting on the couch like I used to do, just in a vegetated state. They were more active, and he found that they actually were working for him 24 hours a day because in their downtime, they were thinking about ways that they could even improve their job even more.
Yeah.
So isn't that interesting?
And that makes so much
Yeah.
sense, too, because when you work, you're still going to go home and think about work. I feel like it's almost unavoidable. But when you're working those longer hours, you're more in a stressed mindset. You're not thinking about a lot of times, or even if you are trying to think about how you can be more productive, a lot of times those thought patterns, they're not very clear because you're tired or you're exhausted or, there's just a lot that happened that day where it can be very stressful. But I think if you're actually working less, and it doesn't mean you're really working less, but you're working less hours, I think you really can focus on the main objective at hand.
Exactly. And you're not worried about your home life because, it's for 5 hours. I'm going to totally focus, totally be present where I am now, get this job done, I can go home, and then I can totally focus on something else. And it's a proven fact that when you are happy and when you are not stressed, you will become more creative. And you will also become more collaborative. So, of course, you're going to work more as a team. So no matter what, when you work more as a team, you are going to be more productive because you get out of your ego. You get into the, how can we do the best for this business? The more this business thrives, the more I thrive. So you come into that CEO mentality. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter whether you're the janitor or the CEO or anyone in between. You're always continually thinking, we want this company to thrive. It's in our interest to make it thrive. Like, where else? If you're getting paid for an 8-hour day and you're working 5 hours, where else would you get that? So you certainly make sure that company's going to exceed, aren't you?
Yes, definitely. 100%. And I think that's a great idea. And I wish that, that was something that more people knew about. I mean, unfortunately, I don't see that's something that could totally be incorporated, not because it doesn't work, but I don't think that a lot of, the people in high places are going to really consider it because they're, looking at what has always been done. And, I think maybe people need to realize more that this is actually something that works better and is helping people be more productive.
Exactly. And he's actually proven it and he talks on it. I talk about it a real lot because I find it quite interesting because most corporate companies could do this. Mm-hmm. And I think it's the leaders, the reason it doesn't happen and the reason they don't trial it, like they can do a trial period and they can, and he even prefaced, he said before the start of the trial, this is a trial. If it doesn't work, we're going back to 8 hours.
Yeah.
And he made it really clear. So no one had expectations that this is it. But that made them make it want to work, if you know what I mean. They went above and beyond to find ways that it could work. And we live in the information age. There is no reason why we can't look at a different way of doing things.
Yes, definitely. And something else that I think is really interesting that you have, talked about and you have figured out is that there's certain areas, and in fact, there's 9 areas to your life, and that you've broken it really down into 4 areas of focus. And I think that really kind of correlates to what we're talking about, which is making things all about you, or not making things all about you, but talking about all about you, all about relationships, all about your expertise, and all about your wealth creation. And I think it's interesting because these areas that are in your life that we need to focus on, they go very much hand in hand with, your life productivity and how you are at work and how you are at home. And I kind of wanted to discuss that also because I think it's a very interesting concept, and I wanted to know if you could tell us a little bit more about that.
Oh, yes. See, it all does start with you. And you are the first focus, and you should be the first focus every day. So, and the more that you are energized, the more that you are out of resentment, the more you can actually give, which then brings you into your relationships. So you start to focus on them. You start to focus on the positive of them, making sure that they all are flowing easily, making sure that you understand what the other person is about and understand how they like to be spoken to, because everyone is different. Everyone has different little quirks about themselves. And the more you understand, Sally wants me to talk to her this way and Fred wants me to talk to her this way. That's how you become a leader in not only in your own life, but in every scenario that you're in. Mm-hmm. And then it comes to your expertise. So when you're a leader in your life and you're a leader in leading people, well, obviously your expertise is going to flow. And we spend so much time in our working life. It's so good to be able to focus and go, well, I'm fine, my employees are fine, or my colleagues are fine. Now we can grow the business, and now we can make sure that these families are fine, not just the colleagues, their families are being provided for. And then, of course, that just naturally flows into wealth creation. And wealth creation isn't just money. It's also about experiences. It's also about everything in life. It's all about prosperity, which is so amazing when you can actually realise that you focus on all areas of your life. Everything just flows easily.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of times when we think about focusing on our own life, it's hard to, people get so overwhelmed with what's going on that it's hard to figure out where to start or, which areas are important. So the fact that you really bring this to light and point it out to people is very helpful, because I think some of the main areas people think to focus on, they forget about themselves. They worry about their family or their finances. I think those are really the top two, and I'm sure that's something that you've experienced in your work. Would that be correct?
Yeah, totally. But what we understand is the more that we focus on ourselves, the more that we get ourselves right, we are a better person. So when we do come home, we come home refreshed, and we have little tools that make sure that we can easily transition from working life person to family person, and then to relationship person, as in partner to partner, compared to, mother or father, to child relationship. So it's actually being conscious of what role am I playing at this moment? How can I bring the best me to this role? And that's what life is all about. And it's so good. And it comes back to Jane Fonda. And I have always said, life is just like a movie. We're all down here playing this role, and I'm a great believer. We come down here multiple times and we play multiple roles. And it was just so interesting that she actually said, life is a 3-act play. And it is. But let's bring the best me to whatever role we are playing at this time. Like so many of it, we have different roles. And we don't even really look at the different roles and say, who am I, in this moment? How can I be the best me in this moment?
Mm-hmm. And what are some of the ways that we can really, where can we start when we're trying to be the best us? What are some of the first key things that we can work on that maybe don't seem too overwhelming?
Okay, so the 4 areas of life under All About You are mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. So you can look at any one of those 4 and you can evaluate where you are now. You have to ask the tough questions. You have to say, who would I be if I was the best physical person, say? Because physical is easy to work on, right? So you write out exactly who you would be if you were in your physical top condition. Now, you don't have to become an athlete to be that person. You know for yourself how you want to be tip-top physically. So write down everything that equates to, and then evaluate where you are compared to who you want to be, okay? That gives you the starting point. And everyone knows that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the second best time is right now. Mm-hmm. So sit down and just do this exercise on physically, and just write down who you would be, where you are now, and then you have the gap. And it's the gap where you create the action steps that'll take you from who you are today to where you would like to be, your tip-top physical person. And then you just start taking the action steps, because you've got the gap and you know the action steps to get there. And then you just monitor yourself. You're only in competition with yourself, as I like to say, yesterday me, and then each evening, you evaluate how you went in those steps, write down where you were good, write down where you were bad, and then the next day you say, right, I'm comparing myself to yesterday me, I will do this today. And you just do that every day, and before you know it, you will be at your tip-top physical condition. And then you will reevaluate and say, can I get better at this? And more than likely you can, because we always underachieve to start with, and then you just keep doing it. And that's why you'll do it. And you do that with every single area of your life, and before you know it, you are bringing the best you into every scenario.
Now, something I really admire about, what you've done is because you've, followed your process. You followed what you preach to people about, making these lists and getting to where you really want to be. And I wanted to ask because, I know that you have worked with people, and there's so many things that hold people back, whether it's, just complete laziness, because you know what, when your life is busy, sometimes you can be lazy in wanting to accomplish the goals that you should be accomplishing. But now, I believe I'm sure that I'm not the only one. I know there's a ton of things that I want to get done and that I feel like I really need to get done. But sometimes, that other things in life get in the way. How can we figure out how to not let our lives get in the way of these things that we want to accomplish?
Well, there's two things you can do. The first thing is you need to figure out your why. Why do I want whatever it is? Okay? Because once you attach yourself to your why, that makes you emotionally attached to it. Okay, I want to be this tip-top physical person. Why do I want it? What will it achieve for me? You start writing down all of these things that if you are that, what you can do. Okay? I'll have more energy. I'll actually have more time. I'll be able to do this. I'll have a better relationship. I'll be able to run with my kids. All everything that you come up with. And then the second thing is you get a coach or a mentor. And that's where I come in. It's like an accountability buddy. You need to be accountable to someone. And sometimes when it's just ourselves, we come up with all of the excuses on why not to do it in this given moment. And then we come up with all the regrets. Why didn't I just get up and do it? I could have done it. I didn't need to sit there and watch that second episode of whatever on Netflix. So that's the thing. So you figure out your why, and then you get an accountability buddy who keeps you on track, who gives you these new ways of doing things. And that's what I love to do, because once you start to get on that road and you start to make it a habit, and it takes 62 days to turn anything into a habit. So you've got to get into that 62 days, even if you only have that accountability buddy for 62 days. Once it's a habit, you just get up and do it.
And what are some of the biggest things that you have seen disrupt people's, patterns? Okay, so if, say, someone's really, trying to, work this new way and trying to get into the, I'm going to call it a groove, get into the groove of making themselves better. What are some of the top things that you have seen take people off of their path?
Well, we have a subconscious mind and a conscious mind, okay? So if your conscious mind and your subconscious mind are not aligned, you are never, ever going to achieve it. So it's about actually getting into the unconscious mind. Now, the unconscious mind, once everything is about keeping you safe. So getting you out of that comfort zone is what really has to be triggered. It really has to move you forward, because your subconscious mind knows who you are at this stage. Yeah, you're safe, right? Why change it? But you're never going to grow if you don't get out of your comfort zone. You're never going to do it. So it's about aligning both of those. And I have an amazing process that I actually do that helps you to get past that. And, there's a lot of people that actually use the process, and it works. But you've got to have them aligned, because if they're not aligned, you'll never, ever get past that thing. And, some things could go back to childhood. And it's about figuring out what the bedrock of this belief is, or this thing that's stopping you, and then you can move forward and you can achieve anything.
Wow.
So a lot of people think they're lazy. It's not. It's just that it's misaligned. that you just need to align it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Karen, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. You're always a wonderful guest. And I mean, what you say really has, these practical parts to it that are things that we can really do that don't seem impossible, which I think sometimes what can be discouraging is when people make these suggestions and it just seems like it's too hard or too difficult to get done. But what you do, you make it sound like it's easy and it's something that we can achieve.
Yeah, well, haven't you always noticed that the easiest things to do are always the things that seem to work? We make things so complicated sometimes. Get back to the old KISS principle. Keep it simple, sweetheart, sort of thing, and it just makes so much more sense.
Yes, it definitely does. Well, Karen, thank you so much again for coming on the show today. You're such a great guest, and I can't wait till we get to talk to you again next time.
Oh, thank you. And if anyone wants to reach out, just go to my website, livelovebydesign.com, and that'll be great.
Great. Thank you so much, Karen. We will talk to you again soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care.